Good morning, everyone. How are we all feeling? It's pretty early. I got my face done this morning, so I was even here a lot earlier than all of you, I can assure you. So long-term mindset, I'm so excited to share with you some of my thoughts on my journey that I've had in my 20-year career. I can't believe I'm saying 21 actually, I'm 21. And I started out as a graduate. And I've learnt a lot along the way, which hopefully I can impart some of that from a client side that is certainly interesting and that you can take back and, think about, contemplate, and maybe put into practice. So I want to make sure the clicker's working. We'll see. I'm trying. Click it on. Is it on? Yes, it's on. Oh, here we go. All right. So I think when you have a long-term mindset, one of the first things you have to work out is, what are you aiming for? And it brings back memories from my early years when I started out. And, I worked for a long time at Toyota Motor Corporation Australia and then spent most of that time with Lexus. And every 3 months we would get together and we would pull in our agency partners. We'd pull in the media agency and we would pull in our creative agency, and we'd sit down and we'd bring in the market researcher and we'd go through all the brand tracker research. And you know what those meetings are like, I'm sure, right? Probably 2-3 hours long, 120 slides that you never get through the whole deck. And you get to the end of the presentation, and as a junior at the time, I'd get to the end of the presentation, and as I said, you'd run out of time. They'd send through the deck, it'd get filed, and then you'd never use it again until you have the next meeting 3 months later. And I really struggled with this because I used to think, geez, out of these 120 slides, which are the ones I should really focus on? Which are the most important? What's going to drive success for the business? Because we get lost in a lot of detail sometimes, and there's always an abundance of information, but it's really about knowing which levers are the most important. So in my role, I'm very transparent to all my stakeholders in what I'm looking for. And my obsession metric, which I love to talk about, and my agencies who are here this morning, Mindshare in particular, will know that I talk about consideration a lot. So it's my obsession metric. It's the one that I am obsessed about every quarter when the data comes through. I want to see consideration grow. Why? It means we're on the shopping list as a challenger brand who's pretty small in a very highly competitive market. I know that consideration is really key. It also means that it's a lead indicator. So I know that if consideration is going up, sales are likely to go up. So that gives me confidence when I'm talking to, within the business and higher up the chain in and around the performance and how well marketing is going. Another metric that I'm really focused on is pride. Pride means people talk about you positively. They talk to you about your brand to other people. But it also means that there is a willingness to pay more, which again, from a business perspective, is something that the business likes to hear. And certainly we want to generate revenue and growth for our businesses. The last one, as we touched on, is Volvo's moving to full electrification. So knowing that Volvo is getting seen and heard and recognised as being an electric vehicle brand for the future is also a key metric that I follow. That's 3, right? And there's a handful of a few others that I look at, but I stay very focused on those 3 and I communicate those 3 to a lot of people. So remember, if you want a long-term mindset, make sure you're clear about what you're wanting to aim for. You've also got to work out how you're going to play the game. Who's seen Moneyball? I'm sure a lot of you have seen Moneyball. Raise of hands. Yeah, a few of you. And it's the story of a baseball team, Oakland's A, and they look at how they can be competitive in a league where they don't have the resources and they don't have the money to get the best players. So they completely change the way that they recruit players and evaluate players, and they go on to win. And I can tell you firsthand from a Volvo perspective, we're pretty small. I've got a marketing team of about 4 people. I rely so heavily on the smarts of my agencies to help us do the best with what we've got. And I always like to say that I've got an abundance mindset. So instead of sort of thinking about what I don't have the money, I don't have the resource, I can't afford to do this, I try and look at how can I outsmart my competition? How can I play the game differently? And you know what? I have to play it differently. I can't play it the same as the others because I don't have the same resources available to me. So really think about how you're going to play your game and look at what you do have in your toolkit and how you can leverage that further. You need to build relationships with stakeholders, and you know, if you have good relationships with stakeholders, they will often do work for you when you're not even in the room. And a really good example that I wanted to share with you, a personal story. You know, again, early on in my career, I used to witness that marketing and finance never really got on all that well, right? There was not a great harmony in the relationship. And inevitably, the marketer would be going, I'm not an accountant. Why are you bothering me with all this, you know, numbers and tracking? And I don't want to deal with these invoices. I don't want to deal with purchase orders. And there would be this, you know, distaste for the financial part of the role. And the poor CFO or finance person isn't armed with the information to help defend what marketing need when they're going around the business and fighting for money and resources. So I witnessed what wasn't good, and I really decided for me that I really wanted to make sure I worked closely with my finance team, and also that my team worked really closely. So I can give you absolute confidence that my finance people trust what we're doing. We give accurate forecasts. We know what we're spending. We can give them confidence around our ability to respond when they have a request. And what I can tell you is that my finance director is often in meetings that I'm not there. And she's bought into what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, the metrics that we're trying to do, and she's backing marketing in those meetings when I'm not there. And that's really, really powerful for me because let's face it, if there's a budget cut, and I face them every year, there's a knock on the door, can you hand back money? They come to marketing first. So my finance director, for me, keeps the wolf from the door a little bit longer. And she might just go hunting somewhere else first before she comes and sees me. And she knows if she does come to see me, I'll do whatever I can to support her. But it's really, really important to look at your stakeholder group and make sure that they're working for you when you're not there. You've also got to speak the language of business. So I touched on the metrics that I love to follow as a marketing professional, you know, share of voice, excess share of voice, spontaneous awareness, consideration. You know, we could talk our own lingo all day long, right? But, you know, up the chain, they want to talk about business results. So you've got to mix it with those business results. And, you know, I talked to you about why I like consideration. Well, it's because the business understand it as well. They buy into it. It's not too fluffy. And you can talk about sales. I'm in the ear of the sales director telling him to keep me updated on inquiry figures through the dealership. I want to know what the net revenue's looking like, you know, month in, month out, and overall profitability. So you've got to make sure from a long-term mindset to get that buy-in that you're talking the language of the business and not just focused on what you are as a marketing professional. You've also got to know your role. And I'm sure a lot of you will relate to this, but for me, I got a really hard lesson, or a really good lesson, maybe 5 years into my career. I had wanted to work in Toyota marketing. Never got to really work in, I've worked in the broader Toyota business, but I was a bit hungry to work in the Toyota marketing team. So I proactively set up a meeting with the head of marketing at that time who, let's just say, he had a lot of gravitas. He was a force, right? And I sat down with him, said, I want to come and work in marketing. He said, have you got a role for me? And he said to me, Julie, the first thing you've got to realise when you come to marketing is that you're not going to be doing creative. I tell this to all the people that come and knock on my door. You're not a creative, right? So just understand that first and foremost. And then he said to me, you know, your job will be to write a brief, issue that brief and share it with the agency, and then you to get the hell out of the way. Because I have got a creative agency and a media agency, and I've got whole rooms of specialists, right? You're not it, right? You're there to manage the process. And so it was, whilst I never got to work for him, I didn't get the job, nothing happened, I got a really, really good lesson that I've held on to throughout my career. And I really enjoy the relationships I have with my agencies because I do regard them as specialists. I really listen to what they have to say, and I hope you all have clients like that, but I do respect the discipline of each of our media specialists. I don't want to tell them how to do their job, right? They know what they're doing, and it's for me to sit back and actually listen to their response to the brief and then let the magic happen. So I really like that lesson. Then obviously a continuous learner is really important if you want to be a long-term mindset. There is so much evidence, so many case studies that again will resonate with the business if you're willing to put it forward. A classic would be, a combination of short-term and long-term activation will yield better results than just one or the other. And putting those results and those statistics in front of your stakeholder group is really, really important. But learn, there's so much evidence, and I think sometimes we forget the evidence that is there and we just get on with getting the job done. But let's teach those around us that this is absolutely a discipline that is, something that we've all invested time in learning and we're putting into practice, and it deserves the respect. So being a continuous learner is really important if you want to have a long-term mindset. So, we touched on long and short. To be good at the long, you can't ignore the short, right? It's not good enough to go, I'm into long-term branding. I spend a lot of time demonstrating to my sales team that I get the importance of short-term, and I get the short working well. That gives me time to focus on the long, right? And I've got a very clear approach to how I deliver that short-term well, effectively, and in a manner that is acceptable to my stakeholders within the business. So it's really, really important that you never lose sight of the role that short-term has in allowing you to also do the long-term. And it goes without saying, to do long-term, you have to have a lot of patience. It's painful sometimes the amount of patience you have to have. Consideration that I touched on at the outset, it is a slow-moving metric. It doesn't change quickly. And so part of the dialogue that I constantly have with stakeholders again is I manage their expectations. This is slow-moving. Don't expect it to change dramatically. Watch the trend over time. It's really important. So making sure you have the patience to actually let your work take its course and stay the course and be confident in the work that you're doing is really, really, really important if you want to have a long-term mindset. This is my final one. I don't know how I'm running for time either. Am I doing okay, Linda? Wrap it up? Oh, no, it's okay? All right, good, I've got time. All right, so last one, empathy. We use this a lot within business, and I'm sure we use it even when we're talking about ourselves and how we take care of ourselves. But empathy is really important. And, understanding maybe what your clients are faced with internally and picking up on the subtle signals that they're leaving you in their dialogues. They might not be as direct as you'd like them to be. And I'll give you a really good example on empathy, right? One of the ongoing problems I face is that my sales team want to be able to turn around a comprehensive retail campaign in 2 weeks, right? And that's a pretty tall order, I guess you would all agree, to start to finish in market, 2 weeks, bang, we're ready to go. And they don't understand. They just don't get it. And every time we sit down with them, they go, why can't you turn this around quicker? And so then that passes down to our media partners. And what we're working on at the moment, we're soon to present it back to the business, is we're going to go sit down with the sales team, right? because they've got their own set of problems. They've got their own set of challenges. They don't always know what the sales result's going to be, and they're like, Julie, I can't tell you what vehicle I want to focus on next month because I haven't yet seen the results of this month. So we don't know, and we've got ships coming in, and we don't know whether the stock is going to land at the time that we want it to land. So they've got their own host of issues, right? It would be easy for me to go, oh God, sales, they just don't get it. It's my job to bring them in as a partner early rather than a judge later. And it was a quote that I got not long ago, and I thought, geez, that's good. So my job is to actually bring my sales team in on that journey, sit them down and bring my partners from Mindshare in and walk them through what actually happens when we brief, and what goes on behind the scenes that they don't witness and that they don't see. So think about that from your perspective. Look for those little hints from your client that they're like up against pressure. If they're saying to you, why can't I get it around in 2 weeks? Probably not them saying it. It's probably someone else up the chain. So look for ways to empathise with what they might be facing within their own business. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope you guys all got a few bits and bobs out of what I mentioned. We've had great success at Volvo over the last 4 years across a whole range of metrics. And I enjoy thoroughly, the opportunity to come and spend some time with you. But I think you're in a privileged position. I know that you probably all have to work extremely hard under intense deadlines. So, when you're facing some difficulties, maybe think back to something I've said today, and hopefully that will help you do your jobs better and stay inspired and enthusiastic when it comes to your roles. Thank you.